Hi, welcome to Exploring the Illusion of Free Will. My name is George Ortega. I'm here with my co-host, Nick Vale. Nick, good to see you.
My pleasure.
All right. Actually, you're my special guest, but you're honorary co-host. Absolutely. Because, I mean, like, we've gotten this started. Where are we? We've been doing this for a while. We're leading the world to a categorically new, evolved, intelligent, necessary consciousness. All right, this is show number 179. It's called Free Will, Causes, and Reasons. We're basically going to go through what causality is about and how reasons are a part of our decision making. Okay, so like before we do that, Nick, let's get us started with defining what people generally mean when we say free will.
Free will means when people say it that they could have done otherwise.
Okay,
that's a short and sweet way of saying it.
So yeah, and that's really, some philosophers, they're trying to salvage this notion of free will. So they say to themselves, well, I chose, cereal for breakfast, but I could have eaten an apple, right? I could have chosen otherwise. And they think that gives them a free will. Explain to our audience why that's like a totally bogus. I don't understand how these academics...
In order to make a different choice, you would have to have a different personal history, different genetics, and being raised differently. Exactly. And have different preferences. And it'd be a different universe.
Exactly. Causality. Right. And actually with that, so like basically just one more definition of free will. Free will, we would have a free will if we could choose what we choose, if we could act the way we act in a way that it was completely independent of factors that are not in our control, like our genetics, like our upbringing, like causality, like reasons. All right, so let's start out. So like, I think people really need to understand what causality is. You would think they understand it already, but apparently they don't.
Well, I know on the street we got into a little bit of not an argument, but I like to use the word reasonality or causality, which is you didn't self-cause yourself. Your parents had sex. We came into this world basically into the middle of a story. We have our genetics and conditioning, and we have a history of reasons or causes of why we do what we do, and most of it's in the unconscious, which also refutes free will. We are not the first cause, okay, because our parents had sex, and we are part of a causal or reason chain.
All right, I get you, but...
Reasons are used more of like a psychological justification, rationale why you do things, and cause implies like more physical.
Yeah, we're gonna like present, much more on what we mean by reasons, but for the benefit of the audience, they need to really understand what this causality, what cause and effect is, and why it makes free will completely impossible.
Cause and effect is simply one moment of the entire state of the universe causing the next moment of the entire, which we are in the universe. One domino, I like to say, is one moment in time, pushes into the next domino, another moment in time, so on and so forth, and you can regress it back to before the Big Bang.
Okay, yeah, another way of saying this, and we got...
But when I picture dominoes, that shows physical causation, but I like to say also reasons. You have a history of reasons why you do things.
Exactly. So here's the thing.
Usually you don't like it when I say it that way.
No.
Because then you said some people could say I do without any, I don't know what the reason is.
I've thought about it more, and you have a good point.
Oh, thank you.
People think in terms of reasons. But we're going to present it both. So again, like with the causality, I want to make sure they really understand both what causality is and why.
All right, then I'll ask you, what does causality mean?
Thank you. All right, causality means, and this is like, Laplace understood this. The people have understood this thing since Greek times. Leucippus. Nothing happens without it being caused to happen. Things just don't happen. Something causes things to happen. Okay, and then it's like, so you have something happening, right? And then something causing it to happen, right? And then something causing whatever caused what happened to happen, right? Because everything has a cause. And that's what we mean by this chain of cause and effect. There's something that's caused, and it's caused by something else, it's caused by something else.
Actually, the cause of everything is your personal history of how your brain and brain chemistry and mind go towards pleasure and away from pain. That is really the cause. Now, you just mentioned Laplace, and who's the other person you mentioned?
Well, the Greeks. The Greeks got that.
But there was a reason why you mentioned that. You didn't just say it for no reason. I've never heard of that guy. What'd you say, Luperdicus?
Leucippus.
Right. So there's a reason or a cause why I've never heard that name before. It's because I wasn't born with the knowledge, and no one ever taught it to me. I wasn't raised with that knowledge, so I wasn't able to understand what you said.
Exactly. All right. So, like, we're going to go back.
So reasons are causes. You understand? Yes. Reason is a good word.
Let's now apply. Let's relate this term reasons to causality.
How about the word? He's never heard. How about the words justifications or rationales? Would that help you?
Absolutely.
Okay. Good.
Absolutely.
Because it implies more of a psychological cause.
All right. So let's deal with the psychology. All right.
Okay, good.
We've just dealt with the physics. The It's not just physics. It's logic. That everything has a cause. Now let's apply this to human behavior, human decision making, human actions. So we do something. We choose cereal instead of an apple for breakfast. Okay? There's going to be a reason why we chose that. Maybe we had apples, the last 6 days before, and so we were tired of apples. Maybe we saw something on TV about apples that didn't look appetizing or something, right? But whatever, it doesn't matter what the reason is, there always has to be a reason.
And you have to stress you may not know what the reason is. It's in the subconscious, unconscious, etc.
Right. Now, all right, so here's the thing.
So you don't have to know, but they're saying it's there.
Yes. And some people might say, well, sometimes I do something, like I could raise my hand like this for no reason at all.
That's incoherent.
Well,
what do you mean for no reason at all? It has to be a reason.
Right. So in other words,
they don't know what the reason is.
Right. That's answer number one.
Okay.
Answer number one, relative to this whole free will thing. The second answer is if you're making a choice for no reason at all, you're not making it with your free will. So
or no cause at all.
Right.
Because then it's random.
Right. So in other words, if you're trying to say that sometimes I do things for no reason at all, that's not going to help defend free will. Because that's, free will means that you would be doing something for a reason because you wanted to, for some kind of moral reason.
So what you're trying to tell the audience is either determinism or indeterminism, neither proves free will.
Exactly. And again, whether we refer to our actions as...
Determinism means cause and effect, indeterminism meaning without cause. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So whether we want to see our choices, our actions as the result of reasons psychologically or as a result of causes, in a more kind of physical, logical sense, free will is completely
Now, you're of the
impossible.
belief that reasons, even if they're psychological, still have a physical neuro basis synapse in your brain. It's still physical, which cause and effect. But people have trouble understanding because they can't find it in the brain. Where's the reason? But I happen to believe, I want the audience to know that it's still a physical cause and effect neurotransmitter synapse thing in your brain, that everything is a physical state, in my opinion.
Excellent
So what
point.
if I told you, well, what about, like Juan used to say, an immaterial, numinous soul is just not, it's not physical.
Well, all right, some people
So it's not causality.
Right, some people say, well, there's a reason, but it's not a physical reason.
Address
Here's
that.
the thing. If you have a reason for something that happens and it's causing a decision, that decision is taking place in a precise moment in time. In other words, let's say I made a decision right now at 2:14 p.m. Okay?
Well, actually, your soul is making, the immaterial soul is making a decision.
But the idea is when a decision happens, because a decision must happen at a precise moment in time, and the second part of this is time is not separable from space. You can't have time without space. You can't have space without time, as Einstein showed. So because a decision must take place.
What?
Because, yes, absolutely. Thank you. Because a decision must take place at a precise moment in time, then that decision must be within our physical universe. Otherwise, you'd be making a decision that's completely outside of the universe. And so and if it's in the universe, it's governed by the physical laws of nature.
So you don't see the immaterial soul, non-physical causation as an out for free will?
No, and there's even a second answer to this. Let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say some things are not material at all. I don't know what call them spiritual, numinous, whatever you want. There still has to be causes. Even like, a spiritual decision, there'd have to be a reason for the spiritual decision. There'd have to be a spiritual cause. And you can't say that the spiritual or the numinous or the immaterial doesn't have causality, because that makes no sense.
They're saying it's non-physical causation, though.
Right, but even so, like non-physical, they don't understand, a lot of these guys don't understand this. Whether causality is seen from a physical standpoint or from a logical standpoint, it would apply to spirituality. In other words, like a spiritual decision, is caused, and that it's the same causality that we're referring to when we're referring to the physical.
And even if there's a non-physical spirit or soul within us, we are not in conscious control of it.
Exactly.
And secondly, we didn't choose which soul to have. So if I have an evil soul, it's not my fault, or screwed up soul or whatever, non-material, immaterial. And the other thing, like you said, an immaterial soul is going to still make a decision in a moment in time. Time is a measurement of something. Measurements have to be detectable. Detectable is physical.
Exactly.
Right? Because time is a detection thing for something going from here to there, as you say, through space and time. And therefore, it becomes one moment in time that the immaterial made a decision, which is now part of the physical universe, because time has to be a measurement of something. And all measurements, as we know, are detectable. You can't measure something, you can't detect it.
Perfect.
So,
all right, we're going to, for the benefit of the audience.
And we get that all the time, that you go on and on and on with causality at your meetup, and some smart aleck in the group has to say, well, I'm not physical.
Yeah, all right, well, we're going to go through this whole thing again for the audience, for the benefit of the audience. Let's start again with causality, okay? Causality, cause and effect, causation, however you want to refer to it, cause and effect. It is the reason why free will is completely impossible. Completely. We could never have had it. We don't have it now. We can never have it. Because what happens is and we didn't explain it in enough detail perhaps the last time. We make a decision, right? It has a cause. A cause is always going to come before the decision. You can't have something in the future causing something in the present or in the past. A cause is always going to be happening in the past. So you make a decision, and it has a cause that came before it. And again, everything has a cause. So you have a cause to that cause that came before it, and a cause to that cause that came before it, and a cause to that cause that came before it. And we have this chain of cause and effect, regressing back, cause by cause. And again, we don't have to know what these causes are. It doesn't matter. It's just understanding that everything has to have a cause just leads to the unavoidable, unequivocal conclusion that because of this chain of cause and effect, what happened before we were born, before the planet was created, is completely causing, through this chain of cause and effect, what we decide.
And you do admit that most of the causes are in the subconscious or the unconscious. So 99% of what people, they don't even know what's causing them to do what they don't know. But I'm theorizing that we do know that you're always going to go as much as you can towards pleasure and away from pain, which is the cause. That's what you're trying to do. Well, just touch on the quantum indeterminacy argument, because I know some of the viewers are already yelling at the screen. Well, we don't live in a deterministic universe. It's been proven by quantum indeterminacy that, everything isn't caused.
All right, the first thing...
Heisenberg uncertainty
nonsense. The first thing, they're referring to the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is wrong. Basically, they're saying, since you can't simultaneously measure the position and momentum of a particle and other conjugate variables, therefore, that behavior is uncaused. Completely unfounded conclusion, okay? But let's give them the benefit of that. Let's say things in the quantum world were happening uncaused. That could not in any way salvage free will, because if something is happening, if things happen that are uncaused and you apply that principle to our human decisions, that means that our human decisions are being uncaused or are happening uncaused. And anything that's happening uncaused cannot be caused by a free will. We can't be causing it in any way. So
subatomic particles don't help the argument. Subatomic particles don't have free will, obviously.
Absolutely.
There's a reason why they jump all over the place. And I always say they're hidden variables not yet discovered. I mean, the Higgs boson was discovered a few years ago. The last quark was only 23 years ago. Everything hasn't been, so I'm theorizing, and so are you, that there's a deterministic answer underneath the quantum world. You know, Gerard T. Hooft, H-O-O-F-T-E, you ever hear of that guy?
Yep.
He won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1999. He also agrees that there's a deterministic world underneath the quantum, and we haven't discovered it yet.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking also don't believe in free will. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Absolutely.
So we're not alone, not to mention Sam Harris. Anyway, so keep going.
All right. So causality. No, so like, in other words, like what we're saying is like causality is what makes free will impossible. But if you want to try to argue that not everything is caused, that's not going to be an argument for free will. Because again, so now let's go.
Well, the quantum argument is it's caused, but yet it's not deterministic.
All right,
it's indeterministic.
Here's another confusion in physics. Basically, a lot of physicists, a lot of philosophers confuse the word determinism with causality. Now, determinism implies or requires causality, but causality does not require determinism. Determinism is basically the conclusion, the correlate that since everything is caused, in principle, we should be able to completely predict the future. Okay, and in principle we can. In principle, if we had all the knowledge of everything going on in every area of the universe, we could predict every moment of the universe. All right, so like what happens, while in principle that's possible, in fact it's not possible. One, because we don't have all that information, and two, because this Heisenberg uncertainty principle and other uncertainty principles prohibit us from simultaneously measuring the position and momentum of a particle. And actually that's being actually challenged now recently anyhow. But the idea is like what refutes free will has nothing to do with prediction. It's all about causality. It's all about the fact that our decisions are caused. So prediction is really inconsequential.
You're confusing people. You're saying the universe is deterministic.
Well, deterministic, again, if you mean...
Fully determined, hard determinism.
It is. It's deterministic in the technical sense that, in principle, because everything is caused, we can, if we had all the knowledge of all the variables present, predict any moment of the universe in the future, and even like know every moment in the past, because we can go back with it. So determinism is, it's another word for causality that also includes the correlate that because things are caused, we can predict, completely.
So let's just get this clear. A hurricane is deterministic, but it's not predictable because we don't know all the millions of variables that go into predicting. I mean, they have all these models of which way it's going. Nobody's ever going to say a hurricane has free will. So
exactly.
So just because something's not predictable, I don't even know why this comes up all the time. Of course, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't prove free will. I mean, human beings are unpredictable. Like a hurricane, it doesn't give them free will.
Exactly. All right. I want to go back to the reasons thing because it's very important.
But a lot of people do make that mistake. Well, it's not predictable, therefore it's not deterministic.
I know,
That's a total not. You don't know all the variables.
Exactly.
Hence the word hidden variables. They're hidden.
Okay.
All right. What's next? Okay.
All right. Let's go back to the reasons. So here's the thing. So like, now, what is a reason? A reason is a particular kind of cause. In other words, like when we're applying causality to human beings, we don't do things generally without a reason. Like you were saying before, we may not know what the reasons are. The reasons generally reside in our unconscious. But we're always going to be doing something for a reason. And again, if we think we don't do something for a reason, and we think that by that we can defend free will, well, if we're not doing something for a reason, we're not freely willing it anyhow.
What about the blanket idea that blankets everything, that the reason is to go towards pleasure and away from pain?
I want to
address
that.
Count?
That's
the
perfect.
reason? Isn't that always the reason?
Yes.
Unconsciously and subconsciously, we don't know what will give us the most pleasure, but something's trying.
Let's go into that in more detail. We are hardwired biologically. We don't choose this. Every human being is designed like this. It's not just humans, it's animals, it's other organisms. We're designed by nature to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And even if we're running a marathon or working like, really, really hard on something, enduring some pain, the reason is still pleasure, because basically we're predicting by undergoing a certain amount of pain, we're going to be feeling more overall pleasure than if we didn't do what we did that was painful. So, but like the basic, again, this is very important. The reason, as Nick was saying, the reason for everything we do is that we're seeking pleasure.
What about masochists and cutters and all these other?
Again, like for some perverse, pathological reasons, some people obtain pleasure by afflicting themselves in various ways. I think even the healthiest of us do this sometimes. And actually, the free will illusion is an example of this. Because most people believe in free will, they believe, oh my God, I've done something wrong, I have to punish myself. Because it would be immoral not to punish myself. So in other words, like their pleasure principle is leading them to gratify their sense of justice, by punishing themselves so that they feel that they have a conscience and they're acting moral. But again, the main point is that pleasure, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain is going to be the reason for everything we do. Again, it doesn't matter whether it causes pain in the interim or for a temporary amount of time. It's always like for the greatest overall pleasure, that we predict will happen in the future.
So someone who gets very depressed often, why would they be seeking pleasure? How is getting depressed or anxious seeking pleasure and avoiding pain?
All right, that's good. I mean, we can only guess because it's probably different for different people, but for some of us may, and again, this, a lot of this stuff happens in the unconscious. So let's say like deep down, our parents or some people when we were growing up, led us to believe we weren't good people. Even though we were, somebody was telling us we're not good or something. All right, so if we have this in the back of our mind and are unconscious, we might be saying to ourselves, oh my God, I can't feel good because somebody told me that I'm a bad person and it'd be wrong for bad people to feel good. So I'm going to punish myself by feeling depressed because I don't deserve to feel better. Again, it could be completely illogical, completely based on somebody's erroneous, evaluation of who we are, but it happens in the unconscious. It provides kind of like a mistaken reasoning. Again, reasons don't always have to be accurate or correct.
Okay, makes sense. So everything happens for a history of reasons. You did this because this happened and that happened. It's part of a causal or reason chain. Reasonality, if that's a word.
Exactly. So
justification, rationale, history, based on one's personal history and genetics.
Yes.
Of the pleasure principle. So we all have a different view or version of how being depressed might be a circuitous route to operantly and classically conditioning yourself to not and admonish and reprimand yourself to feel lousy so you don't make that mistake the next time.
Exactly.
It's an unconscious conditioning model.
That's a great point. A lot of times
rewards and punishment.
Yeah.
Actually, we forgot to tell the audience with 4 minutes of why is this show the most important show of all time? We always start with that.
This show is the most important show of all time because getting this question of free will right is the most important question of all time. This isn't up to me. I'm going to go with the Searle quote. There's this guy, John Searle, eminent American philosopher, ranked 14 among philosophers in this encyclopedia of philosophy in terms of how many times he's been cited by other philosophers. He was asked by this psychologist Susan Blackmore in 2005 for her book, Conversations on Consciousness, if the world were to acknowledge that free will is an illusion, what would that mean? And what he said is that would, I quote, be a bigger revolution in our thinking than Einstein or Copernicus or Galileo or Newton or Darwin. It would alter our whole conception of our relation with the universe, end quote. That is why this is the biggest show that has ever been, produced, the most important show. And that's why this topic that we're leading the world to understand is the most important topic. Perhaps if this show was on how to make everybody completely happy or completely good, if it was a show on how to, let's say, live forever or contact aliens or whatever, maybe those things might be more important, right? But those things haven't happened. So this is unquestionably the most important show and the most important topic in the history of humankind. Now, so explain. So that was I explained kind of like the historical relevance. Explain this in details in terms of how getting this right can make the world so much better.
Well, I like to think even if it didn't make the world better, but it will, it's the truth. So I would think living in the truth would make a better world. You can't have 90 to 95% of the population walking around living in a deluded, as an illusion state where they're just their consciousness, their fundamental consciousness is incorrect, and they're going to actually have higher degrees and toxicity of severe blame, self-blame, and other blame, thinking that someone else could have done otherwise. And once you attribute you could have done otherwise, then you're saying, well, you could have risen above your genetics and conditioning and done the right thing by me and been a good person. Therefore, you're mean and evil, and you have malicious intent towards me, and I'm going to now get revenge and escalate and get retribution and destroy you. So it escalates into a circular hatred. The planet has tried, George, free will for 2,000 years. It's clearly not working, in case you haven't noticed.
No, I hear you. And
so I don't think us taking the no free will show to the CNN and getting it to the people, we're going to do any worse. I mean, they're beheading people on YouTube. How could we do worse?
Perfect example.
It's time for a change.
Perfect example of the harm of free will belief. If those terrorists who just killed those cartoonists didn't believe in free will, there's absolutely no way that they would have done what they did, because it would not have made sense to blame those people for that. In other words, like,
we're suggesting there's more talking it out than violence.
Absolutely.
What are the causes? What's the reasons why you did that? Right.
Absolutely. All right, we've got like less than a minute left, Thanks for watching. Catch Nick's show. Nick and I and our co-host Mike do a show every Wednesday on MNN Channel 56 Manhattan. Okay.
And then live every other week.
Live every other week. Okay.
This is the tape version.
Yeah, we have the meetup in New York, like the first Saturday, in Manhattan, first Saturday every month. We're gonna keep doing shows.
Exploring the illusion of free will meetup, right?
And
that's what it's called.
To talk about your books. Nick's
I can't take credit for it.
Neither can I, but we've written books about this, so we're leading the world to a brand new
My book's called The Bible, no free will.
Tune in again, and we'll continue exploring this. Thanks for watching.